saying it's okay, so. All right, good evening and welcome to the school board meeting for Pasco Schools. We'd like to ask you to please turn off your cell phones if you haven't already done so. And I will read our vision statement, which is that all of our students achieve success in college, career, and life. The thought for the day or the evening, it's my turn tonight. So my thoughts here about being positive, and that sometimes we only count our losses and not enough of our gains. Sometimes we grieve for what isn't to be, and then we need to embrace what we have and even find advantages in what we didn't expect. So if I can ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As for a roll call, please make note all board members are present. And I'm going to ask for a moment of silence, unfortunately, this evening for the family of Jeremy Romano. He was an 11th grade student who passed from Sever Hills High School. All right, thank you. On to the approval of the minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 1st, 2019, and the workshop of October 1st, 2019.
Move to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. We have a public hearing this evening. I'm going to open the public hearing on District School Board Policies Update Volume 19.2, and I will turn it over to our attorney, Mr. Alfonso, to give you some explanations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, this is to announce the public comment portion of the District School Board of Pasco County Policy Update Volume 19.2. Notice of this public hearing was placed on the district website and in publications in compliance with Florida statutes. If any member of the public wishes to be heard on the District School Board Policy Update Volume 19.2, person should have already completed a green speaker request card that you can receive from the board secretary. When called, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak unless an extension is granted. I can note that no green cards were received. Is there anyone who's present that would like to be heard on this matter? Now would be the time to come forward. Madam Chair, let the record reflect that no one approaches.
Okay, so I will announce that the public hearing is now closed.
Madam Chair, can I make a comment about just one of the policies there? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, I had gotten a couple emails from teachers and phone calls, and they were really worried about that crowdfunding policy, so I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. Something that teachers do a lot of times, and I had clarified with Mr. Shibley, is they'll go on Facebook and they'll say, hey, we're doing this special craft activity or this STEM science experiment, and we just need like any materials you have lying around your house. I mean, I was guilty of it. And so they were worried that they weren't allowed to do that. And then also there's this new thing going around where teachers are asking for sponsorships for their students to get like the Scholastic Dollar books every month. So what it is like the teacher is able to say, hey, you know, I'll sponsor the child for $9 for the whole year, and they'll get $1 book for the entire year to take home. And so they were really worried that they weren't going to be able to do that. So I had emailed Mr. Shibley to see if this is still something that we're able to do. So are you able to clarify that for us?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
And for things like those small classroom projects or activities, those are really not the focus of the crowdfunding policy. It's more if you're going out to a site like Donors Choose and soliciting large sums of money, either for some sort of cash contribution, or if you're looking for iPads, computers, other large ticket items. When you're dealing with small projects like that, those are not the target of the policy. Okay. And in general, the the rule of thumb is if your administration is aware that it's going on in your building, you really don't have an issue. The crowdfunding policies are really focused more towards the use of the district's or the school's goodwill to try and solicit funds or materials for a school.
All right, cool. Thank you. And I will, I did let those teachers know that, and they were very thankful for that. So thank you, I appreciate it. That's it.
Also,
Thanks.
Thank you. Yes?
No, Madam Chairman, the one thing too that I wanted to bring to your attention is policy 5330, which is a proposed policy regarding medical marijuana use. And I know that since the last time we met and workshop policies, I think this was added to this policy revision. We had gotten direction, once again, from the Florida Department of Education that said that we needed to have this type of policy in place or we would risk losing funding. So the policy's there, 5330. I just want to make sure you were aware of that, and that was one of the ones that we had not workshopped.
And one of the things that I can reiterate for the board relative to what we added to 5330 is all we essentially did was codify what we were doing in our schools. So this is actually the practice that was already in place. We were already accommodating these situations. But unfortunately, fortunately, the directive we got from the Florida Department of Education is they wanted it formally in policy. So we are doing this to be in compliance by the December 1st deadline that they had given us. But nothing is really changing in terms of the operation of the district. We're going to continue to deal with those situations on a case-by-case basis at those schools.
That's probably more than enough, but to throw one more thing, to just add some emphasis. So the policy was tweaked from the existing policy that speaks to how medications can be administered, but it really does simply adopt what was already existed as policy. So we're trying to make sure the policy can be submitted to say we are in compliance. It does not, as already said, represent a change in how anything is occurring. Thank you.
Thank you. To our visitors, we like to cover our bases around here. All right, so the public hearing is now closed on the district, Pasco County District School Board Policies Update, Volume 19.2, and no vote is taken tonight. So on to public presentations, and I see we have none tonight. So we will be moving forward, well, that went really fast. We're going to move forward to public comment on agenda items. I have one green card, so this would be the time to make sure you have that filled in. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Alfonso. Yes.
So,
Just
Oh,
speak.
I'm not in the mic? Okay.
and I will do an abbreviated version since I didn't pull up my script. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the opportunity for people to speak to items that are currently placed on the agenda for action tonight. If you have already completed a green card, you would be identifying the specific item that you wanted to address. This is the time for people to come up and do so. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak unless an extension is granted by the board chair. And other than that, I'd ask that when you approach, that you please state your name and address for the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I have one speaker, Ryan, and I apologize, I'm not sure if this is an M or an H, Helsinki or
It's an H.
Maxine?
It's an H.
Helsinki,
He's
okay. Say it right?
Hazinski.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry,
Hazinski.
thank you.
That's okay. Ryan Hazinski, 3503 High Hampton Circle, Tampa, Florida. Good evening, everyone, honorable board members, Superintendent Browning, good to see you again, staff. I'm here to speak on 15.3, the Proclamation for Parent Engagement, which I gotta say is amazing. 10 years ago, when I first began my advocacy work, I wrote an op-ed that appeared on the front page of the opinion of the now defunct Tampa Tribune, and the first question asked, am I a teacher or am I a scapegoat? This was around the time that the recession was really getting into full swing. We began the accountability movement and everything else. In that piece, I talked about how the accountability should begin with the student, but it should be buttressed by the whole continuum. You know, everybody, the classroom teacher, but especially the parents. They have such a crucial role to play in everything that we do, especially in 2019. So this proclamation is wonderful. I know it's for next month, but just the fact that, you know, it's tough to get people involved when it comes to the parents. So if there are any parents who are here tonight, if there are parents who are watching, please get involved in your local PTA. Volunteer at your school. There's so much good that you can do, and I mean, we all know it's all hands on deck at this point. Our resources are very, very low. You know, we have $1 trillion economy, but we're 45th in education and 48th in teacher pay, dead last in inflation-adjusted spending. You know, the list goes on and on. So it's a noble thing that you guys are doing with this proclamation, and I came really to say thank you for what you're doing. For parents, I would say the most important thing is to really engage the child at home. And we used to ask when we were young, what did you learn in school today? But I think the question really has been changed in a sense to what were you tested on today? I mean, in that same decade, because of the accountability movement, I mean, we now are been saddled with all this unnecessary stuff. I mean, kids are stressed out. I mean, it's not just the testing. It's the progress monitoring. It's everything else that goes along with it. It's all the tests. Why don't we just have a simple concordance score? Why can't teachers just go back to teaching, to actually having autonomy in the classroom? I mean, I see Member Harding nodding a great deal. She just left the classroom recently. She knows that these things are very real. And a lot of times just in a walkthrough for a board member, it may look on the surface as if it is learning going on. But, you know, Plutarch, very famous quote, says that the mind is not wood, is not a vessel that needs filling, but wood that needs igniting. And all we're doing is dousing that inherent flame. We're hardwired to learn, and the testing is really killing it. So if you are a parent, another thing I would also suggest is that you look up the opt-out network here in Florida and try and opt out as many possible tests as you can. And another way that we can stand up against all the politics and profits that's been put over people is if you're an educator, on January 14th, 2020, take a personal day. If you're a parent, maybe have your child stay home from school that day and engage in some kind of civic demonstration. I mean, they're so concerned about us having civics lessons. Perhaps this is the best way that we could teach with direct action by the people to demonstrate that we are not happy with the way things are going. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Time for United School Employees of Pasco, Mr. Don Beese. Good evening.
Good evening. Superintendent Browning, Attorney Alfonso, Chair Crumley, honorable board members and district staff. Let me bring you up to date on what's been going on. First of all, it was good to see the district represented at the Pasco delegation, and I would like to commend Mrs. Bodwin on her remarks to the legislators. Her push for early college dual enrollment classes makes a lot of sense for both our students and our teachers, and would allow for more students to participate in these offerings. She also spoke to the RLE rollback and increasing teacher salaries. So I want to publicly thank you for taking a stand for public education. There are two main reasons, in my opinion, that we have a teaching shortage in this state and across the country. We have lost respect for teaching as a profession, number one, and the ask for teachers has become so immense it seems nearly impossible. We as a state and as a district need to work towards reclaiming that professional status for our employees. Legislation has chipped away at our pay, and bonuses have replaced meaningful salary increases. Working conditions have eroded, and class sizes have grown. Teaching has become a job and not a career. A lot of the passion has been taken from us due to the demands on our time, workload, and planning. Recently, our governor did have conversation in regard to raising teacher pay. And as educators, we're glad to hear this talk coming from Tallahassee. Finally. He spoke of this as a means to recruit and retain teachers, his words. While raising the beginning teacher pay to $47,500 seems all good and well, and may go a long way towards enticing graduates into the teaching field, it will not solve the teacher shortage. The loss will then show up on the other end as experienced teachers will be forced to leave the profession. My suggestion to the delegation was to take the $603 million the governor was proposing and put it into the base student allocation. Senator Bradley has filed legislation to dissolve the best and brightest, so add that $250 million And there is also a third bonus program that has become very controversial and no longer really serves its intended purpose, the A-plus School Recognition Program. Take the $131 million from this fund, and together this totals almost $1 billion. If this were to go to the BSA and be distributed to the districts, this would go a long way towards picking all of our employees up financially. I think it's something we could all get behind and ask for your support in legislative conversation. USEP also had a meeting today with the district staff to discuss some other ways to find finances locally. We are looking into data and hope to have additional conversations to see if anything can be moved forward. We also had another meeting, an informational meeting, to find out everything you ever wanted to know about grants. It seems as though this is the year of the grant. Wouldn't it be nice if some of that money could be used to reward all of our hardworking employees? Finally, we will be contacting all of our state legislators to really put the focus on public education. We need to focus on the future of our district, state, and country, our students. But we need to do that today. After all, isn't that the reason we're here? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pease. Time for board member committee reports, and we're just going to change it tonight, and we're going to start at this end with Mrs. Bodwin.
Okay. I had a student progression plan committee meeting, and we were put into subcommittees to review the following areas. There was a testing group, promotion, retention, progression, and acceleration, enrollment, placement, and transfers, grade reporting, graduations, and student recognition. And then there was also a National Honor Society group, and I believe Dr. Isles may have initiated this. And I thought this was a great idea, so thank you for doing that. And that subcommittee was working on developing common guidelines for National Honor Society, and there does seem to be some discrepancies and different things going on across the district, so I was really happy to see that there is a group working on that and codifying it. I was in the testing subgroup, and there's no significant changes yet. We were really in the process of clarifying language, and I went out of order, so that's it. We're just clarifying language right now and cleaning it up, so I don't really have anything specific to report on that yet. Mr. Alderman?
Large cap fund facilities meeting, but nothing yet to report. They're still going through decisions on that.
Mrs. Armstrong?
All right. Been attending the FSBA legislative to-go meetings that we're having just about every Friday to go over what's going on in the committees. They're just now getting cranked up and into filing some very important bills. So as that becomes more codified, I'll start reporting on some of that. But we also have Mr. Birch to do that, and he's been doing an excellent job keeping us informed too. And then I also had the Employee Health and Wellness Incentive Committee meeting. MedVision shared the claim data through August to give us an idea of how our strategic plan is working and to see if there's any problems in our data collection. Right now, there's a problem with the partial feed of pharmacy data that is affecting results. So they're tweaking that, constantly having to tweak that as codes change and procedures change among all our providers. The School Wellness Champions program in the schools had their kickoff. This is where we're trying to identify a volunteer in each school to be that wellness champion for that school. And there's small incentive, very small incentive, monetary incentive for someone to step forward and do that in the schools. So they had their kickoff. And then they're hoping for Odessa Wellness Center to be opening. The latest is by Christmas. So I know a lot of people are really on pins and needles waiting for that wellness center to open, so hopefully by Christmas.
So that'll give us 4 or 5, right?
That will actually give us, I believe, 6.
6.
That's
great. Wow.
That one is going to take a lot of pressure off 2 really busy centers, which is Gulf High School and the Land of Lakes Wellness Center. So it's a much wanted facility.
I
Mrs. Harding.
Okay, sorry. I had a charter task force meeting. I wanted to thank Mr. Youngman. I wasn't able to be there in person, but he had a Zoom meeting for me, so that was really awesome, so I could still attend. They talked about the following charter schools that were designated by the Florida Department of Education as being schools of excellence, which was Dayspring Academy, Academy at the Farms, Countryside Montessori, and Imagine School at Land O'Lakes. So kudos to them. They also talked about the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act, and that all of our charter schools are in compliance with that, in compliance with the 70-30 requirements. So that was really awesome too. We talked about the five-year work charter, the work plan charter school tracking, and if projections seem to hold true and all charter schools are open to capacity, there's a projected enrollment of 12,164 charter school students, and that's an increase from the 5,247 that we had. They are going to be, they also talked about that for the 2019-2020 school year, our charter schools are receiving psychological services via a virtual provider, which I thought was very interesting as a part of their administrative fee, because there was such a shortage of school psychologists in our district. The Charter School Task Force principals, they did express that that they have experienced some difficulties with the transition and wanted an update on the district's final plan. And so they're looking into that to see if they can get them some answers. They also talked about how they wanted to explore how Crisis Go will be implemented in charter schools, which I was happy to hear that they wanted to be a part of that. I think that's important. And then they also talked about how they would like to receive feedback on volunteers' approval process through Raptor, because they're seeing like it's not moving very quickly for them to get their volunteers approved. So I know Mr. Youngman was going to look at that. And then they also talked about that Charters Link. I'd mentioned that last meeting, how it's like a streamlined program that they can update all of the papers that they have to update to us, all of the reports. And they said it's going really, really well. And so they're really glad that it's been streamlined, and it seems to be helping them. And then they wanted to receive additional information on support on the substance abuse training and the child trafficking state board rule that we have to do. So they wanted some updates on that. So the next time we meet is in January, so I'll be able to update on that. But they did a lot in that meeting.
All right, thank you. And I had no committees meet. So on to Superintendent Browning.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I have several items tonight that I wanted to bring to the board. First and foremost, most of you are aware that this past week, the Congressional Medal of Honor recipients held their convention in Tampa. And about a year ago, we were asked, one of three districts, obviously it was Pasco, Hillsborough, Pinellas, that were asked to be a part of their character education program. So we got all of our civics teachers, social studies teachers in, and went over with them the curriculum, and many of them just absolutely embraced it and really took it to the next level. And by doing so, they got the attention of the Medal of Honor folks down in Tampa that were planning this convention. So we were like, I would say light years ahead of where Hillsborough and Pinellas were when it came to the Medal of Honor convention and the activities. We were fortunate enough to have 8 of our schools last Wednesday and Thursday be able to participate in visits from these Congressional Medal of Honor recipients. I had asked my staff to go out to be at these schools. I think a board member or two had been out there when some of them, Ms. Bodwin, had been out there when they came in. And I just have to give a huge shout out to our schools that hosted these recipients. There's only like 70 living recipients left. There were about 47 of them in Tampa. And I will tell you, when they came into our schools, and I was at Land O'Lakes High School when they came in, the one gentleman, Robert Patterson, retired Army, a veteran of Vietnam, as well as Desert Storm. He was unique, to say the least. He was a soldier, and he talked to the kids in a way that a soldier would talk. And I'm standing in the back, and I'm about to die 1,000 deaths, but let me tell you, these guys just connected with these kids. I mean, it was incredible. You could have heard a pin drop in these schools, and this was elementary, middle, and high school. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Tina Stavro-Clem, who's over our social studies. She has worked tirelessly coordinating so many of these activities with the Medal of Honor folks in Tampa leading up to this. It was a good week. I was very, very, very fortunate to be invited to the Medal of Honor Gala on Friday night. Black tie, don't get to wear that very often. But it was an incredible program where they recognized these 47 men, and they gave awards out. Gary Sinise was there, George Strait was there, the governor was there, and it was just a good night, but most importantly, George Strait was there, yes, but George doesn't hold anything to me. Most importantly, it was about those 47 men, and to see their stories being told, it was just absolutely incredible. So we are very fortunate that we were being a part of that. Let me fast forward to today. Two things happened today that I'm going to mention two of them, and I'm sure Mrs. Hilton will probably fill in some gaps on the second one I'm going to talk about. The first one was Two Good Souls. Two Good Souls took place today, which was the shoe and sock drive that the county government, Pasco County government, does every year. And the county government, all their internal divisions participate. Actually, they compete against one another. And then all the constitutional officers compete, collecting shoes and socks for our kids in our system from our families. Today was a record year. They collected 3,057 pairs of shoes and 13,285 pairs of socks. The gym at Wendell Crane Technical High School was full, but there's obviously plenty of room for more shoes and socks next year. So we're grateful, and I just want to thank Pasco County government, our constitutional officers, for taking the time, effort, and energy to collect those shoes and socks for our kids. The second thing that was going on at the same time was Impact Florida is an organization that is relatively new to Florida, but they have started or created this program called Districts for Impact. And Pasco was chosen as one of those districts of impact. The other four districts are Palm Beach, Osceola, Miami-Dade, and Collier. And they are doing what I'll call a learning opportunity, learning experience in each one of those districts over the next 4 or 5 months. And today was our day in the bucket. And Mrs. Hilton and her team talked a great deal about our common vision of instructional excellence and how that drives our work in this district. And I just wanted to give a public thank you, shout out to Vanessa. I know Marcy was there, the entire team, OLL, Office of Leading and Learning, and I'm sure ARM, and I shouldn't even start mentioning departments because I know I was going to forget somebody, but they came together. They did an incredible job. And they certainly set the bar high for these 4 districts to follow Pasco and meet the standard that we set today. So thank you to you and your team. And finally, I have an introduction tonight. Most of you know that Linda Cobb, our PIO, is retiring in March. And it's not beneath me or above me or below me to steal people from other agencies. That being said, I'm good at it, and I have asked Steve Hegarty. Steve, you'll stand up in the back. Steve is going to be coming on with your approval in January when we get returned from spring or Christmas break to shadow or work side by side with Linda for a short while so that he is up to speed when Linda goes to step down as our PIO. Steve is the Public Information Officer currently for the City of Tampa Police Department. You can only imagine why he wants to get out of that. Before that, Steve was with the Hillsborough County Schools. He was the PIO down there under Mary Ellen Elia for a number of years. And then prior to that, I believe he was with then not the Tampa Bay Times, but the St. Petersburg Times. And he wrote a number of articles on me in my former life, some not so pleasing. But for that, I have forgiven him. But he comes with a great wealth of knowledge of school systems, as well as police departments and law enforcement, which helps us today in our day and age of school safety and our relationship with the sheriff's office and our local police departments. Steve, it's on the consent agenda tonight in the addendum under HRAQ. Steve is here tonight with his wife, Jay. Jay, if you can stand, please. Jay is one of our social workers in our pre-K program. Has been for a number of years. So thank you, and hopefully you'll get an affirmative vote, Steve. Thank you so much. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gadd?
I also wanted to mention that I had the opportunity to attend one of the Medal of Honor events at Paul R. Smith for a Thomas Roland Norris, who was a Navy SEAL back when no one knew who the Navy SEALs were, back in the early 70s, and he was selected to go behind enemy lines and rescue a couple of downed pilots. And there was no friendly fire there. He was surrounded by the enemy and had to go in and try and rescue these pilots, and subsequently snuck them out under the cover of darkness in what I think he referred to as a saipan, which in our language I believe is a canoe, but literally had to snake them down a river, often under fire. And it was an incredible story. I kept wondering if those middle school kids actually understood how terribly dangerous what he did actually was. But it was quite a story, and he really connected with the kids. It was a real pleasure to watch the kids during his presentation. At our last board meeting, we did a recognition for Senator Tom Lee. And as you know, I left the meeting, and Mr. Birch and I spent a really productive hour with Senator Lee, and had an opportunity to talk about a lot of important issues related to the profession of education. Last week, I was also in Tallahassee along with Mr. Birch and Sean Foster, and had a chance to meet with Senator Diaz, Representative Maggard, Representative Zika, and also had about a 45-minute session with Commissioner Corcoran. And so it was a couple of very, very productive days, and I remain optimistic that the legislature is going to do some things to help teachers this year, and I'm glad they're focused on teacher salaries. I'm not sure what the outcome will be, but the idea that they're talking about it, I think, is a step in the right direction.
Mr. Shibley? Thank you.
Don't have much this evening. There is an addendum to item 10.1 that has been uploaded into board docs that is part of the agenda.
Okay. Mrs. Kuhn?
Good evening. I have two things to share with you this evening, and one is item 11.2. That is for the wing that is in progress at Sun Lake High School, and we have the Williams Company. We have Tony Roush here, who's in the back with Mr. Goody. So if he could stand up and be recognized, we're happy to have him here with us this evening. And then also...
Welcome.
Sorry. And then also, on the action agenda item, Mr. Stowe will do an overview of the Florida Safe School Assessment Tool for you. But I wanted to take a minute to thank Chief James Walters, who's here this evening. He's sitting over there, so I just wanted to say hello to him and to thank him for being here. You've heard us say this before, but we are just very fortunate on our safety team to have the Pasco Sheriff's Office and our municipalities to support us. We really have a wonderful collaborative relationship, and Chief Walters is just amazing to work with. He's always there for us, whatever we need, and I'm very grateful for his support. So thank you for him being here.
And welcome also, Chief Walters. Thank you. Okay. Mrs. Swinson?
Yes, I actually would like to ask Mr. Christopher to come to the podium. We have an appointment and a promotion to introduce to the board.
Good evening, board members. Mr. Alfonso, Mr. Browning. I'd like to introduce this evening our newest appointment to the Finance Department. He's joining us as a senior manager, and he will be overseeing accounting and financial reporting. This is Chris Saunders.
Hello.
Chris Saunders
Welcome.
joins us. He was previously an accounting manager and audit manager in the real estate industry. Prior to that, he served as the audit manager for the city of Fort Worth. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of Texas and a master's degree, MBA, from the Texas Christian University. He is a certified public accountant and a certified internal auditor. Chris was actually recently married in September. And he's originally from Orlando, and he has two daughters, Hannah, 10, and Olivia, 6. And some great news is, although he currently lives in Oldsmar, he and his wife are moving to Pasco County in the near future. So
Right.
I'd like to welcome Chris.
Welcome.
Also, you all know Casey Canoe already, because he was in our department. He was promoted to accounting manager. Casey joined the district in 2013 as a temp. He was then hired full-time as a finance assistant, and shortly after that, he was promoted to a finance analyst, where he oversaw capital projects, and he will continue actually to oversee capital projects. He's done a fabulous job with that. Casey's actually a graduate of Land O'Lakes High School, and he received a bachelor's degree from USF. And earlier this year, he completed all the requirements, and he is now a certified public accountant. So I'd like to congratulate Casey also on his promotion.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Congratulations, guys.
Right.
Madam
And
Chairman,
where am
just,
I?
and I'm just looking at
Yes.
this, just, I want to make sure the board, Chris Sanders was the one that
He called.
we called you about, wanting to make sure that you were going to see a retroactive date on there. So
Yes.
just in case anybody knows, it's a retroactive date.
No problem.
Yes.
All right, okay, so over here, Mrs. Hilton.
Good evening. It's good to see you. It's been a while. So we have a few things to share on the instructional side. I'd like to echo the appreciation for some schools that have really gone over and beyond in hosting outside visitors for us. So today was Paul R. Smith. They also happened to host a Congressional Medal of Honor visitor as well. So big couple of days for Paul R. Smith, who hosted Impact Florida and the 4 other districts, as well as the secondary math coaching professional development today. And then last week, we had the Schusterman Family Foundation visitors to Rodney B. Cox Elementary and Pasco Elementary. And I just can't say thank you enough to the excellent students, teachers, and leaders who really helped Pasco shine during both of those events, as well as the other things that we've talked about that are almost too numerous to name because our schools are doing such great things. I'd also like to celebrate our secondary schools that are engaging their students in Student Congress. That happened in the time between our last meeting and this meeting on October 17th. We've seen these schools highlighting this elevation of student voice that's so important on Twitter and on their campuses, which we appreciate. I also would like to recognize 2 very special students as our nominations, District of Pasco nominations to the state for U.S. Presidential Scholars. And so we are able to submit 2 names, one as a strictly academic submission and one for CTE. Both, though, have to have pretty hefty academic accolades. So I'd like to introduce you virtually to Cameron Farquhar from Wesley Chapel High School, who was our CTE submission. Cameron has a 4.53 weighted GPA, all 5s on the FSA exam, and has excelled in rigorous coursework as well as earned all certifications in the ag-related area, and is also president of the FFA there. In addition, on the academic side, Cole Ressler from River Ridge High School, who not only is very academically inclined, but has done that despite some pretty significant family loss and need to sort of step in as more than a student. So Cole has always received all A's in all classes, including engaging in the most rigorous coursework on that campus. So congratulations to both of those students, and of course the teachers, as well as family members who are behind those students that really, help them get to that point, because typically students don't do that alone. We're excited to have submitted those to the state, and we will know soon if they're selected. Also, this is Red Ribbon Week. We have that on our agenda. We really want to use this time to reinforce the need for good decision-making, which is actually related to our social-emotional learning competencies by our students, related to risky behaviors connected to drugs and alcohol. Really thank you to our student services staff who often really help elevate. The schools do it, but student services staff typically play a pretty special role in helping to support this effort in on our campuses. And lastly, I'm bringing a recommendation to you today for CTE Director. I'd like to have Dr. Lori Romano stand. I'm excited, very excited for Lori to join this great team pending your recommendation. She brings 20 years of leadership experience and over 25 years of experience in education alone. She holds 6 different educational certifications, as well as bachelor's, master's, and of course a doctorate degree. In fact, you may remember that she was the director of adult community and secondary virtual education in Martin County previously, before transitioning to Hernando and then to us. And under her leadership in our county, she's assisted in securing 2 multi-million-dollar grants for our system. She is very deeply connected, committed to our district mission and vision, and she has a great passion for CTE. So thank you to Lori Romano. And she has some fans already from the CTE department who are with her. So, thank you.
Marcy, Exxon Nettles.
Good evening. I will piggyback on a couple of the announcements that you've already heard, but I just would be remiss without saying thank you to Paul R. Smith again. As both the superintendent and Vanessa alluded, we met there today with Impact Florida, but the teachers and the students were simply incredible. It was really amazing to see in action, and I was so proud of them and proud of our system. And the work that they do every day. And on top of that, Paul R. Smith is hosting tonight their Monster Math / Frightful Night. Not Freak Night, Fright Night. Monster Math and Fright Night. And that is an event where their math teachers and their ELA teachers, actually all of their core content teachers, have some very scary lessons that are rooted in standards. They had over 20 students in full dress, ready to read at the freaky, frightful podium in the dark, tales from Edgar Allan Poe and other Halloween-themed things. So it was really cute, but a lot of effort and work, and Principal DeVincent has sent me some pictures of a packed 300-person-plus dinner that they're serving right now on top of hosting 5 districts today. So they've certainly taken on a lot and are doing amazing stuff with it. And for Red Ribbon Week, yes, all of our middle schools are very engaged in that. You can look on Twitter and see some of the cute ideas that they have around promoting those healthy choices. But tomorrow, 120 middle school students are going down to Tampa with members of our student services team to participate in the DEA 360 event. So that's certainly an exceptional leadership opportunity for them, and I'm excited to hear how that goes. It's a first-time event that is being put on to help them really attack the drug epidemic from a leadership standpoint. So that's an exciting opportunity. And then also our schools are currently recruiting speakers for the Great American Teach-In. Anyone who is interested and has something they'd like to contribute, they can certainly reach out directly. Most of, if not all of them, have posted the information about who the contact is at their site. The National Day is coming up Wednesday, November 20th. A couple of them do it the day before or after, depending on school activities, but anyone would certainly be welcome to help them in that respect. And I will turn it over to them.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Poe.
Yes.
Thank you.
So several celebrations in our elementary schools, but I'm just going to highlight a couple. A couple actually come from New River Elementary School. So they just received word that they are second in the state and fourth in the nation for the Scholastic Summer Reading Challenge. If you recall, a couple of years ago, they
Yes.
received the same type of honor, so they're still going strong, and they try to prevent that summer slide by keeping their kids really engaged in reading over the summer. To earn that honor, they read 1,955,431 minutes this summer. So quite an accomplishment to be fourth in the nation and second in the state. So we want to celebrate them. And then I received word last week that they had a surprise visitor on campus, and it was Mr. Bob Hatfield. He was representing Congressman Gus Bilirakis with an award for one of their FNS workers, Carol Davis. And what she does is she goes above and beyond for the community of Zephyr Hills, Wesley Chapel, Dade City by collecting clothes and toys, and she distributes those to families in need. So they recognized her with the Certificate of Special Congressional Recognition. So it was a nice surprise for her to receive that recognition. And she definitely works hard for those, not only the students in New River, but for the surrounding communities. And then lastly, I just want to highlight Longleaf Elementary. They received a state PTA award, and it was for having 100% of their staff join the PTA. So 100% participation on the PTA during the month of September. And this month, they're working to get as many grandparents to join the PTA. So they kind of tackle different groups to join the PTA each month. So great success on their efforts. That will be it. I have plenty more I could say, but I'm going to pass the mic.
Thank you, thank you. And Dr. Isles?
Yes, I'd like to start with an introduction tonight. Randy Cohensfeld is retiring after 33 years with Pasco County Schools. And so we have been interviewing for the principalship at that school. And I'm pleased to say that we will be bringing forward to you a recommendation for Alondra Beatty Woodall. You could stand. Alondra, just to give you a little bit of information about her, she's worked at both the elementary and the high school level. She's also been a coach for our system, a science coach, and she's most recently been an assistant principal at Ann Clote High School. She has been the assistant principal overseeing and opening the Cambridge program. And truly, if you talk to that team, Alondra is the go-to person that knows everything that's going on. She's definitely an innovator, a thinker, builds relationships with students, and so we will be bringing her as a recommendation for Schwetman Education Center. And I also want to share that she does have guests supporting her here tonight. Michelle Williams, former principal of Ann Clote High School.
Yeah.
And many staff members. Stand up with Alondra. She has a fan club and her family, her boys that are here as well. So thank you.
Thank you, team, for coming too.
And I do have just a couple of announcements. I do want to recognize SSPS. They did do a walk this weekend, an Out of Darkness walk, if you've seen that. We're doing a lot around suicide prevention within the county and want to recognize their efforts in that event. We also had for ROTC, a new cadet session that we had at Hudson High School, and want you to know that Ann Clote and Hudson both placed at that event, so we're very excited about that. We also had at Mitchell, which I thought was wonderful, two student groups got together, the Student Congress group and the Social Inclusion group, got together to celebrate bus drivers and instructional assistants. And so it was truly the students getting together to host that. And we also have tonight at Ann Clote, we are looking to recruit more guest teachers for our county, so I want you to know that's in the works. We also had a visit from Hernando County that wanted to come out and see the work at Kren Technical School. They were there this past week. They also visited the River Ridge High School Teacher Academy because they've heard so many great things about all of those programs. And we also have homecoming winding down in high schools, and we also have outstanding senior selections being done at our high schools as well. So it's a busy time of year. Good stuff going on.
Thank you. And Dr.
I just want to
Sganga?
share my Medal of Honor congressional experience, because we had Colonel Ballard at Deer Park Elementary in front of elementary children, and he's a lifelong military, rough and tumble type of person, but he did a pretty good job in terms of telling stories. But at one point, I want to tell you, he basically got in trouble, and he said, "The Admiral called me, and I want to tell you what he said." And then he stopped himself and said, "Well, let me clean it up." The Admiral said, "You better get your butt back to base." And he left it there. And I thought, okay, I can live with that. So he did a really good job. It was a really wonderful experience. So I also want to just thank Mrs. Armstrong. She joined me and several principals on a visit down to corporate prep in Tampa, which is known for its global education, and as well as some other things. But we're interested particularly in their work with the International School Connection and how they connect with other children around the world. And we have a couple schools interested in that, and that's just developing. But it was nice to have Mrs. Armstrong with us there at that school to visit. And I know Colleen was going to come, but got conflicted.
With the legislative
Yeah,
delegation.
got somebody, yeah. But anyway, thank you to Mrs. Armstrong. That's it.
Madam Chairman, if I may, I have two quick things that I meant to say and I did not. First off, I want to thank Andy Dunn. He spent all day today at Paul R. Smith. If we say Paul R. Smith one more time, Paul R. Smith, he gave his time supporting Impact Florida. And oftentimes Andy's in the background, doesn't get any recognition. You see the great work that he does across this district, so I just wanted to publicly thank him.
He's so humble, too.
And
He's on delay, too, right? Should you wait?
And-
Clapping?
you heard me. All right. Yeah, he
We
read my
love
lips.
Andy.
And finally, so that Steve doesn't think that he's been slighted, there are communications staff here to support you tonight, and I just don't want CTE to think that they showed you up. So, communication staff, thank you for being here, supporting your incoming PIO. Thank you.
Well, and Mr. Superintendent, wasn't Paul R. Smith a Medal of Honor winner
Paul R. Smith
also?
was
Yeah.
a Congressional Medal
Speaking
of
of,
Honor
yeah.
winner. He was,
Yeah,
and he was a
that's why
Pasco
we-
boy. He sure was.
And that's why the school is named.
That's
So
why it's named after-
It was very fitting that that came up a lot tonight.
That's correct.
But thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt the clap for.
You're good.
Okay. All right, thank you. And let's see, we finished here. Okay, it's a good night. No expulsion recommendations or hearings. Yes, I love that. On to the consent agenda. Any board member have anything you would like to pull and move from the consent to the action agenda? No?
Madam Chair, I'll
Yep.
move approval of the consent agenda with the addition of the addendum for 10.1 that was downloaded earlier.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so motion was made by Mr. Altman, or Board Member Altman, and seconded by Board Member Armstrong. Got that? Okay. So on to action items, miscellaneous items. This evening, we have quite a few. The first two are involving naming of a couple areas, so
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of 15.1.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and motion approved, and that is the naming of the announcer booth at Gulf High to the Steve Booth Broadcast Center. 15.2,
I move to approve 15.2.
Second.
all in favor?
Could I
Aye.
say something about that one? I was
Sure,
gonna do
and
a
that's the
discussion,
naming of
but-
the John Benedetto Stadium Field at Land O'Lakes High.
I don't think, is Mr. Mullen here? Because usually he comes
see
for
him.
things like, I still want to take a moment to read part of the letter that he submitted, because I think Coach Vicki King is very remarkable. So those of you that don't know her, for over 32 years, Coach King has fielded dominating teams in girls soccer. When Pasco County added the sport in 1987, she became the first and only coach for Land O'Lakes High School. Coach King's teams have yielded considerable successes in our regions and state, winning the FHSAA State Championship in 2003 and finishing as runner-up in 2015. Her teams have also reached the state semifinals 3 other times. During the 18-19 season, her squad produced her 500th victory. No other coach in the Tampa Bay area has these credentials, nor are they even close. On July 27, 2018, the Tampa Bay Times published an article called 50 for the Ages, the top coaches in Tampa Bay history. In this article, she is noted for her success in having more than 30 girls who have gone on to play soccer in college. Moreover, and I have to mention this part, Coach King will tell you that many of her fondest memories are attributed in her involvement with Special Olympics and the Council for Exceptional Children. For decades at Land O'Lakes High School, she sponsored the Council for Exceptional Children Club. Their primary goal is to advance the success of children and youth with exceptionalities. Much of their time has been dedicated to promoting athletics and sportsmanship within Special Olympics. Coach King's work did not go unnoticed. In 2015, she was chosen to coach a soccer team made up of athletes from the area that represented the United States in the Special Olympics World Games. Her team quickly became fan favorite because they competed against athletes much older than them. Their efforts paid off with a memorable trip to the winner's podium for a team medal. So in recognition of Coach King's successes and devout allegiance to the school's athletic program and student organizations and the Land O'Lakes community in which she served, they are requesting that the stadium field be named the Vicki King Field at John Benedetto Stadium. So I just wanted to read that into the record because she is amazing. Done a lot of great things for our kids.
Lots of great things.
All right. And we did approve that one, 15.2. So for the next 4, there are proclamations, and I just want to say I found it very interesting because all of our proclamations are very important, I feel, but these 4 really are special because they tie into success of all of our students, and the one is Red Ribbon Week, which is about having a drug-free lifestyle. 2 is school bus safety, and what we provide safe transportation and just to honor our bus drivers and what they do every single day, twice a day. And Florida Family Engagement, we had the gentleman speak to that earlier this evening. This is such an important piece, and I just wish every parent understood this. And 4 is the Lights On, which are our after-school programs that enhance our kiddos. So I just thought it was interesting that all 4 tie in so closely. So I'll be quiet. Moving to Proclamation 15.3, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, we approve the proclamation for Family Florida Engagement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
15.4,
Move to approve Lights On After School Day proclamation.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 15.5,
I move to approve the proclamation for National School Bus Safety Week.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And 15.6,
I move approval of the proclamation for Red Ribbon Week. I probably should have picked a different
Second.
one to say.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, 15.7, revisions to the Student Code of Conduct. Motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And for 15.8, I guess I can ask for a motion first, and then we're going to ask Mr. Stowe to come up and speak. Or we could just do that first. Come on up. Chris Stowe is going to talk about Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool 2019 and 2020, our district assessment. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Superintendent. Good evening. As last year, I'm standing before you pursuant to Florida statute and Department of Education regulations to report to you the status of the Florida Safe Schools assessment that was done on our schools over the summer. The actual assessment has been uploaded for y'all in the SharePoint, and y'all reviewed that prior to the hearing, but I wanted to go over some main themes that we're going to move forward, not only from last year, but how we're going to move forward cyclically to ensure that we have, we're moving forward in a proper manner. So, as I mentioned, Florida Department of Education Office of Safe Schools requires all counties to have a safe school assessment done by school, to include a law enforcement walkthrough, first responder walkthrough, and then any recommendations to changes to school assessments be done back to the district, and then us do an aggregate district assessment and report back to the state. And then we also do appear publicly for you all, and then tell you what the results were. So what the assessment tool does is it compiles all the information on school infrastructure, the data, security assessment recommendations from law enforcement and first responders, and then what we are as a district are recommending to do moving forward with the use of grant funds, state-provided funds, and then any capital projects that we're going to do, as well as any security hardening recommendations. As with last year, this year we grouped our findings in themes in order to best determine how we can use the funds that we have available to us. Last year's Safe School funds that we got from the state, I think were in excess of $2.2 million that we had to do a fair share apportionment to the charters. This year it was reduced to approximately 1.3, with a fair share apportionment also to the charters. So that's why the best way for us moving forward is going to be to do a strategic approach to the ones that we've already done, kind of add to that, which I'll get into a little bit here in a minute. We want to make sure that we're using the funds that we get from the state from grants as best and judiciously as possible, because they are few and far between. But I think we're making really good use of what we have. We have tangible results of our security from last year's improvements that we did and rolling into this year, based on Student Crime Watch data, based on the Sheriff's Office data that we've got. So we've had to have a reduction of events and things of that nature. We still have ones that carry on, but we've had a reduction, which is positive. We took a critical review of the items that the schools recommended needed to be done from a security standpoint and see where we could bend them into work orders. So if we can get that done through the maintenance cycle, then so much the better, because it allows us to use the state funds in another manner. So the bulk of those work order ones kind of focused on fencing improvements, gate improvements, paring back the landscaping so it can't be used to bound the fences or to block observation. All those things we're asked to do, and we've got work orders in through the maintenance department to do that. As I had briefed to you last year, we used the bulk of the Safe School money last year to initiate a security camera plan to ensure that all schools in the district had cameras. I'm happy to report that all that money has been allocated for and jobs have been set in line. We will have all of those schools with at least 32 cameras by this 2021 summer. So what that'll then do is it'll cause the second phase to occur, which is going to be an expansion of our existing camera plan, which will focus on additions to existing camera suites. So that's how we're going to keep that kind of rolling along the years to keep it going, depending on the funding streams that we get. So it's not as dependent on that. So we can kind of take it in bites to make sure that we're making improvements all the way across the board. One of the main themes that we had this year as results from the assessment was a request to have window tinting or mirroring in the classrooms and in some of the other areas as well. As you all know from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission, it's one of the best practices recommendations from the Commission, as well as the DOE Office of Safe Schools, in order to try to obscure observation from any folks that would try to come on campus. So we're going to take a look at that through the vendor system, and then using the funds to apply that in a strategic manner across. We obviously can't do all schools all at the same time. We're going to work through that in a needs-based way. We also have a statutory requirement to ensure that emergency communications operate functional well in all of our school settings. So we have set a plan in place that's as required by state law to do communications testing for all first responder communications in every one of our schools and make sure that those operate functionally. And then last year we worked on the locks and had all the locks redone in all of our schools to make sure they always stayed locked. That's been a resounding success. We're going to move that kind of process forward outside of just the classrooms. We're going to move it into some other key areas, into the school administration buildings as well, so we can continue that theme of securing doors so people can't just kind of walk in. So the focus of effort obviously last year was to the classrooms, and now we can then move forward into the administrative offices and other places like that. I already talked about this previously, but we're at least halfway through phase one of the cameras, and then phase two will focus on improvements and expansions of our existing camera plan. We want to make sure that, and to walk this back a second. So original camera plans, pre any of this was the security wasn't necessarily the focus, and rightfully so. We have to make use of the cameras and technology we have now so they can be dual use, so they can both have a security aspect and then the other reasons that we have cameras in the schools as well. So we'll take a look at being able to do that so we can maximize and almost make a twofer out of it, so we get both functions out of the same camera. So the schools that have requested the window tinting and the mirroring for this year's school assessment, it was a request for improvement that was in the assessments. And again, as I mentioned, it was an overwhelming kind of majority that the schools asked for that. So we're going to take a look at how best to do it. I'm working directly with the facilities director and maintenance and get a schedule put in place to do that. The kind of the good offshoot of some of the things that I've learned about window tinting and mirroring over the last week is that depending on the type that we use, we can also realize an energy reduction benefit as well. So we can end up having some cost savings there as well. So I want to highlight some successes from this year that are carrying forward, not only from our relationship with the Sheriff's Office, but all of our municipalities. And again, like Mrs. Coonan said, I want to recognize the chief here, and I appreciate the relationship that I have with them, as well as all the other municipal police departments as well. I couldn't do it without them. I couldn't do it without their constant input and their buy-in. So it's very important that we have that. And we enjoy that in Pasco County that I can tell you for a fact is not necessarily enjoyed statewide. So it's something to always harp on it and note. But some of the factors that I think that we've seen some really good successes on this past school year and that we're moving forward is the human factors. So we're having, with our student crime watch programs, we have, as evidenced in the most recent events in Hudson Elementary, the See Something, Say Something absolutely works. When you give the students and the staff ownership on the programs that they take part in, then they own it, and they actually do respond. They respond very well. So I'm very proud of that. Usually he doesn't know yet, but I'm going to go see him and kind of give him a little acknowledgement, so he doesn't know that yet. We started the phased rollout of our technological app, Crisis Go. We're in the initial rollout phase with the high schools, and we're going to accelerate that a little bit to the middle schools. My intention is to try to get it to out and active in the secondaries by Christmas break, and then get into the elementaries and out after New Year's. We're going to bring in some instructional staff from the vendors to go ahead and ensure that we can facilitate that also. And then touched on the one last thing I kind of want to highlight is in public, so everybody can hear it, is that we were one of 8 counties in the entire nation to receive a competitive grant to increase our behavioral threat assessment resources. So we can increase the collaborative effort that we have with the multidisciplinary team to do the successes, which is what I feel is getting left of any sort of events that we have occur in the schools. And we do that best by having wraparound services, both in the school and then outreach with our civilian healthcare providers. So this will go a long way to make sure that we can do that, and we have an enduring team in place in the long term. So my recommendation from the Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool that I uploaded for your review is that the board approve it as uploaded, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And you sort of wrapped up comments earlier about the good job they're doing, and Mrs. Kuhn, you did it so well, I would like to hear you say it again,
No, I
Superintendent.
would love to say it again. Thank you. This district is incredibly fortunate to have the relationship with our law enforcement that we do. I remember, and I shared this story with the board during our closed session, but I remember during the time that the legislature was debating Senate Bill 7030, which was this public safety bill. This was then like 2 weeks after Parkland had occurred. And I remember Sheriff Naco calling me, and he told me, he says, if you want to arm teachers, I will support you in that. He says, if you don't want to arm teachers, I will support you in that. And that set the tone for what that relationship was going to be like. And I will tell you that there are still districts out there that are fussing and fuming about how public safety money is going to be spent and how we're going to keep our kids safe, but that is not the case in Pasco County. The Pasco district was one of the first, if not the first district, to have all of our safety guards to settle on a plan, have safety guards hired and trained and in place by the start of school at the beginning of last school year. That does not go to my credit. It goes to the credit of staff and the Sheriff's Office. The relationship that we have with the Sheriff's Office, the relationship we have with City of Dade City and Chief Walters, the City of Newport Richey with Chief Bogart is incredible. These departments have supported this school system. They continue to support us. And they're being asked to be even more engaged in our schools every day. I wanted to thank Chief Walters for being here tonight. Certainly Chief Bogart, Newport Richey and then Sheriff Naco for that relationship, and then my team for just really making it happen. Our kids are much, much safer today than they were 18 months ago. We are not where we need to be, but we are so much further than where we were 18 months ago, I will assure you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
We are very fortunate for this relationship, and thank you for the presentation. So, on to 15.8. Yeah, I'm gonna ask for it, yeah.
Sorry about that, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, I actually didn't pay attention. On to 15.8, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I appreciate it, because sometimes I do forget. Okay, thank you, and appreciate it again, all of you, very much. So, as to 16.1, individual board member reports, I think we wanted to start here again, but I'm going to say something first. I'm going to say, I just want to remind all of us that we have master board training on Friday, and is that at 8 or 8:30? 8 o'clock, and I would like to say thank you to Mrs. Facemeyer for dealing with all of our schedules and putting this together again. And we're going to be master board trained. We get like a kung fu kind of thing to wear something after we're done with this. Anyway, really good training. So go ahead, Mrs. Bodwin.
I was trying to cut some things out here. I attended the West Pasco Ambassadors Breakfast to recognize and honoring Alice Del Guardo, and thank you to all who support the Feeding the Elderly in our community. The legislative delegation on 10/11, I spoke because Ms. Crumley could not attend, and I think it was Ms. Harding, but I'm not sure who asked me to share what my notes were, so Ms. Facemeyer made copies, so they're just my notes. They aren't anything special, but the three highlights were, the first thing I talked about with the help of Mr. Gadd was expanding early college dual enrollment. So I started with that one because it had little impact on the state budget and huge impact for students. And then advocated for increasing teacher salaries across the board. And the third one was maintaining required local effort property tax rate and not being forced to roll it back. I also attended a board meeting for the Alliance for Healthy Communities and the Alliance for Substance Addiction Prevention. And they talked a lot about STAND, and Ms. Hexler-Nettles did mention some of this too. I think it was you who said this. And STAND is Safe Teens Against Drugs, and it's a team of youth leaders determined to end youth substance abuse in Pasco County by providing education to teachers, police, businesses, and other community members. STAND is now in Chasco, Anclo, Bayonet Point, Gulf High and Gulf Middle, Hudson High, John Long, and Land O'Lakes High. Pace, Russia, and Wendell Crin. And the numbers I got were a little different from hers, but I'll just say there are this I think is accurate. There's 75 members so far this year, and then also I was going to mention the Youth Summit on October 30th in Tampa, and thank you to the superintendent and the other staff who are attending, because I cannot be there. And I heard there were over 400 students registered, and of that 400, and this is where our numbers might be different, but there's over 100 from 5 middle schools attending, with 5 to 7 high school ambassadors also attending. And the high school ambassadors are those students who attended the DEA youth leadership training over the summer to continue their mission to be leaders within the community regarding substance abuse prevention. So I just wanted to thank those students. Kudos to them for taking a stand on these issues. I also attended Pasco Education Foundation Swing for the Kids, and I wanted to thank the sponsors who so generously give their financial support and time to providing funding opportunities to our students and teachers with the foundation. Thank you to Premier Health for recognizing our board members and presenting us with the 2019 Community Health Advocate Awards. If you haven't gone to get yours, you can stop by and pick it up. It's a nice plaque with a plant. I don't know if everyone's gone out there yet. I also went to Lakuchi Elementary's Fall Festival, and the school community just really feels like a family there. There were several middle and high school students that still come back to the elementary school, and Lakuchi alumni were there, and they all came to participate and volunteer. I went to Trunk or Treat at Gulf High School. It was the first ever event, and despite the rain, it was very successful. There were a lot of children there, and the GHS students did a wonderful job decorating their trunks and entertaining the kids. I too attended the Medal of Honor recipient visit, and it was a huge success. And I did get to go to the training, I think it was 2 summers ago, And those teachers really have implemented it well, and I wanted to thank the organization and Tina Stavro and the schools who hosted them. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our students to hear from primary sources. I was at Pineview Middle, and I just want to shout out that I saw that there were a lot of students, but Pineview had 400 kids there in the gym. And they had the entire year 2, which is 7th grade students because they're taking civics. And they also had some additional 6th graders, year 1, and 8th graders, year 3 students. And I could not be more proud of the way that those students behaved. They were polite, respectful, attentive. They asked thoughtful questions, and Pineview did a great job rolling out the red carpet for our visitors, and they really did make our district proud. After that, I attended a think tank with Judge Lynn Tepper and Bob Hatfield from Congressman Bilirakis' office and some other community partners. And the meeting was to bring together the community in an effort to collaborate and pool resources and ideas to prevent at-risk youth and young adults from entering or re-entering delinquency, child welfare, or criminal justice system. We discussed needs ranging from education to child care. I shared what we were doing around the social emotional learning, the early childhood, and financial literacy. The stakeholders were pleased with our efforts, and I wanted to thank staff who are working on all those initiatives. While I was there, I also received some positive feedback from a parent who was in this group who was really very pleased with the district and what we're doing with that social emotional training on our Wednesday early release days, and she really recognized the importance and was grateful for what we're doing. I also attended Lights On After Dark, which is Superintendent and Ms. Harding were there too for their after-school enrichment programs, and Ms. Kuhn. So thank you to Mary Gray and her staff for all they do to support children and their families. I saw a lot of students from our schools at the St. Pete International Folk Festival on Friday, and that was a great experience for them to learn about other cultures. Friday night, I was at Wiregrass Ranch High School, and I bring this up because the Bulls were playing Tampa Bay Tech. It was their senior night, and while I was there, Principal Robin White had to evacuate the entire stadium because of the tornado warning. And I got to tell you, she and her staff did an excellent job of getting everyone, both sides of the field, everyone into safety, into the school, and then back out and continued the game when the warning expired. So I think we need to thank her for her quick action. And then this morning, I was able to go to Two Good Souls, and again, I wanted to thank the employees of Pasco County government and the constitutional officers because they made a difference in the lives of thousands of our Pasco County students. I think that's it. Thank you. I know, we've had so many good things going on, and it's been a whole month since we had a meeting.
Well, I've had several things. The only one I'm going to comment on is I was honored to be asked by Senator Simpson to give the invocation at the Capitol the other day for his event. What it allowed me to do was to interact on the floor with some senators. Mr. Gadd has developed a great relationship with Senator Lee. I got to spend some time with he and former Senator President Gates, who was the school superintendent in Okaloosa County when I went there 12 years ago to start talking about academies and technical schools and all of that. And so we had a great conversation that evening at dinner. Artie and Zika sat at our table and brought 3 other representatives, one of which is going to be on the House Education Committee. And so we were able to have conversation about a lot of different things. Interesting enough, the gentleman that ended up seated right next to me, we got to talking, and he said, my sister teaches in Pasco County. He's from South Florida. And so I found out who she was, and I said, yes, she taught both of my girls in elementary school. Shell.
Nice relationship.
Shell Travis. So anyway, her brother's now an elected state representative, and so I think he thought that I was maybe pulling his leg, and I pulled out my phone and went to my messages, and I said, there's the message. She and I were sending it back and forth the day before yesterday and stuff. So they listened, and we had some great conversation, and I, like Wayne and Mr. Gadd, are hopeful that we're going to see some change in some things because of some relationships that have been made and some changes in leadership, and I left there feeling hopeful that we're going to at least have an ear to be able to do some things.
Thank you. That would be good. Thank you.
Okay,
Mrs. Armstrong.
just a couple of things I'll comment on. The Corbett prep visit was extremely interesting. The principal there has been there forever, just a dynamo person, and it turns out she was actually the professor that taught many of the administrators that went on that visit at USF. So it was kind of like old school. They got to see their old professor, and there were wonderful things are happening in their school, and they have some amazing programs that, like Superintendent said, we love to steal from other places. So some good ideas that I think we can use and implement here in Pasco County. And then I also attended the Two Good Souls and Socks event, and I mean, it's just amazing seeing our social workers there to accept all those shoes and take them out of that gym, all 3,000 plus. They all knew where those shoes were going to go, and they had good ideas of what kids were going to get those shoes, and they were just so appreciative of everything that the county does for our students here in the district.
I first wanted to thank you, Mrs. Hilton, for spending some time, and Super Brown, spending some time to talk with me about Hudson Elementary School. I'm very, 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 very thankful that we're problem solving and we're putting all those supports in place. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate you. A former student of mine asked me to attend her Bayonet Point volleyball game, so I got to attend a volleyball game versus Chasco and Bayonet Point won. That was really, really fun to see my former students playing. I heard a lot of, Miss Harding's here. It was really great. I also wanted to thank you, Mrs. Bodwin, for speaking for the school, for our school system at the delegation. I appreciate that greatly. I also wanted to give a shout out to all the schools that I've seen participating in Anti-Bullying Month, because October was that, so there's so many activities out there, and every time I go to schools, I still see so much initiatives about kindness, so I wanted to thank all that. I also got to visit Hudson Elementary, and I spent some time in their pre-K and kindergarten classes talking about how they can use their own superpowers for good and kindness, and it was really a lot of fun. They got to make their own little superhero capes, and they loved it. I wanted to thank San Antonio Elementary School for allowing me to attend their early release day SEL training and just inviting me into their family. I'm learning so much, and I can't wait for next month. A few weeks ago, I got to attend the school finance training with FSBA, and it was a great training that focused on categoricals and capital dollars. It's really great. Got to dive deep into school finance. I too had the opportunity to attend a few fall festivals this week. I got to attend Gulf High Schools, and then on Friday I got to attend, they were doing a collaboration with Cruz Lake Middle School, Mary Jell, and Shady Hills, which I thought was awesome because all those schools are so close to each other, so they put all their fall festival together. I love the turnout for all of these and how it attracted so many families in our community, so kudos. I also got to visit Learning Lodge Academy, and I loved how they incorporated Kagan strategies into their lessons. Very engaging for their students. All their students were engaged in their lessons. I, too, had the honor of speaking at our after-school enrichment programs Lights On after-school event. It was a super fun night, and I wanted to thank Mary Gray and all the ASEP staff for what they do for our students. Learning really doesn't stop when the bell rings, and so we're so incredibly fortunate to have such amazing programs in our county. So thank you.
Mr. Alfonso?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. So on to public comment on non